Yuki Tsunoda has been snubbed of the Red Bull seat that he felt he deserved more than Lawson, and with a new teammate from 2025 onwards, things are very likely to change in his approach as to whether or not he will remain in the team in the foreseeable future. Now that Honda and Aston Martin are joining their forces from 2026 onwards, and we do know how much the Japanese manufacturer cares about its drivers, a massive bombshell could be on its way, considering Horner's latest statement regarding Tsunoda's future in Red Bull. But can Yuki prove that Red Bull was completely wrong to promote Lawson instead of him? And furthermore, what does the future hold for him? One of the greatest mysteries in the world of Formula One is the Yuki Tsunoda question, as the young driver spent 4 years and is about to enter into the 5th season with the sister team of Red Bull, Racing Bulls, formerly known as AlphaTauri, but hasn't now gotten the chance to be a part of the senior team. That chance has gone to Liam Lawson, who only has 11 Formula One races under his belt, but has never out-qualified Tsunoda in the 6 races that they spent together as teammates in 2024. So it is rather questionable as to how the Austrian team makes its decisions. To make matters worse, it now looks like the chances of Tsunoda having any realistic chance to still be considered for the Red Bull seat are slim to none, because Horner acknowledged the fact they have to accept you can't have a driver in the support team for more than 5 years and not do anything with him. Whether this is Tsunoda's fault because of his swearing and tantrum throwing antics, that is up to them to decide, but Horner has been adamant that there is a realistic scenario that we have to accept in which Tsunoda won't be part of Red Bull's family anymore. We'll get to that later in this video, but first let's see what the future and the revenge plan of Tsunoda consists of. It's largely known throughout the Formula One paddock that the connections Honda has with Red Bull is what brought the seat to Tsunoda, and the hope of Yuki is that the same pattern can be applied now in Aston Martin as well. Of course, the environment is vastly different and non-comparable to what is awaiting Tsunoda on his quest of securing a seat in the Silverstone-based squad, but with enough persuasion from Honda, especially if they turn out to be competitive for race wins and maybe even championships, Lawrence might be put in a spot where he'd have to be forced to make a change to his driver lineup. Currently, it's highly unlikely that he'd ditch his own son for the sake of the quest, even though he knows very well that Lance is not really here because of the talent rather than the nepotism that is dominating in Aston Martin. On the other hand, there is no glory in success without sacrifices, and if Alonso is determined to remain in the sport for a longer period of time and is showing great results with Aston Martin, then maybe the option of demoting Stroll, which would be boosted by the fact that there are some serious personnel who have been employed by the Silverstone-based squad, such as Cal, Cardile and Newey, is the most realistic scenario in which we're going to see Tsunoda be upgraded to another, more competitive team than the sister outlet of Red Bull. This is the path that Gasly followed, and it's something similar that struck Albon as well, as both of them were unable to find their homes within the primary Austrian team, even though, unlike Tsunoda, they were given a chance to prove themselves against Verstappen. One of the things that Red Bull didn't like about the Japanese driver, which has been said multiple times by Marco and Horner, is the outbursts that Tsunoda frequently had on the radio. However, Tsunoda saw nothing wrong with them, and when talking about it, he praised the way he utilized this behavior in order to become what he is today. Further adding, my mindset was that I want to say loudly to kind of decrease my stress. Without that, I won't be here. It's not all about yourself. When I look from an outside perspective, previously, even though my 1-lap performance or my driving was okay, I think the radio communication and emotional control were lacking quite a lot. A big step when I compare it to Daniel, for example. And nevertheless, as I mentioned earlier in this video, the situation of Tsunoda in Red Bull might be a finished story, because Horner himself admitted that you can't have a driver for so long and yet be without a chance to have a seat next to Verstappen. Again, Tsunoda has outperformed drivers like Ricciardo, De Vries as well as Lawson, but that wasn't enough to be considered as a Red Bull candidate, and now he is even being overlooked when it comes to his 2025 teammate Hadjar. It does look like the Austrian team has decided to come back to their roots, which is to promote from within their academy and cut ties with anyone who doesn't have a connection within their inner circles. Horner has been really praising the talents of Hadjar, even stating that he outperformed Tsunoda in some of the tests that they've done and that the Frenchman is definitely turning some heads in the Formula One world. To say this about a driver who is yet to drive a full Formula One race compared to a man who is about to enter into the 5th season and the pillar of the Faenza-based squad goes to show where the mind of Red Bull lies. But nevertheless, this is the reality that we live in, and when elaborating further on this, Horner said, "Isaac is another talent. He is quick, he jumped in the car, and he was faster than Yuki in the test last week, which turned heads. He is definitely a raw talent and needs a little bit of polishing, but he has the speed. He was unfortunate in Formula 2 to miss out at the last race due to the technical glitches with start line software, from what I understand, but he has impressed as well, particularly with his speed. It will be interesting to see how things pan out." Of course, there is always an opportunity for Tsunoda to be promoted to Red Bull in a fashion that Albon was promoted back in 2019 when Gasly's Red Bull debut went horribly wrong, even though they are slim to none. The greater opportunity is that we are not going to see Tsunoda being part of Red Bull in the long-term fashion, and when talking about Tsunoda's chances in Red Bull, as well as the chance that they might have to face the consequences of these decisions, Horner said, "Honda is an important partner for us, but we are a customer of Honda. Of course, we consult Honda in the decision making, and I'm sure that they would have loved Yuki to have been in the car in the last year of their agreement with Red Bull Racing, but Honda has always refused to get involved in the driver lineups. They've always left that choice down to the team. We are acutely aware that if we are not able to provide an opportunity for Yuki, in all honesty, this year, does it make sense? You can't have a driver in the support team for 5 years. You know, you can't always be the bridesmaid. You've either got to let them go at that point or look at something different." Yes, there is a chance that Lawson's debut in Red Bull is going to be poor in a similar fashion to how Gasly's debut went, even though the Frenchman had a lot more experience with Toro Rosso at that time before being promoted to the senior squad. And according to Horner, the first man to step up here would be Tsunoda. However, given the fact that he was never part of their academy lineup, there is a situation in which they would much rather prefer the new rookie Isaac Hadjar, who was the runner-up for the F2 Championship in 2024, rather than Tsunoda, who will always be considered as a liability because of his connections with Honda. When talking about stepping up to Red Bull's second seat, if Lawson is not fulfilling the required needs, Horner said, "I think Tsunoda is very determined. He knows that things change very quickly. Who would have thought 9 months ago we'd be sitting here talking about Liam Lawson being our driver for 2025. Things change quickly in this industry, and Yuki is aware of that and knows that he needs to be the one demonstrating that he is the one knocking on the door." With all this in mind, do you think that Tsunoda needs to get away from Red Bull's toxic environment as soon as possible? And if so, which team do you think would be his next home? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in the latest spat between Horner and Wolff, make sure to check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.